And that is, and it's no uncertain order, is separating the fuels from the structures. So I fully recognize that there is a big difference between being a mountain community or a community close to the mountains with heavy vegetation and 29 Palms. There is significantly less vegetation out here. That said, in the event of a fire, the brush, the trees, brush, or construction material or old pallets or wood that are adjacent to homes, that those things light up and that directly impacts your house and lights your house on fire. And one of the things that was so tragic, and I'll save people from the stories if they're interested, I can talk later, but really is the horizontal fire spread. The winds were so strong, I talked to one fireman who was actually fighting to save multiple houses, including his own, and he talked about horizontal fire spread. Normally, when a fire burns, it burns up. But the winds at up to 90 miles an hour pushed the flames to the side. And so that caused one house would ignite, the flames burn to the side, it immediately preheats the house to the next to it, lights that one, and it's this chain reaction. Panorama fires in, I think, 1978 illustrated this also. And so I would suggest that the people separate the fuels from the house, pull those highly flammable things away from your home. One of the other things that was remarkable, and there is, I think, grave concern amongst the authorities back in Los Angeles, are the number of people unaccounted for. And so don't want to go into that in too much detail. I don't want to get emotional. But one of the things, I spoke to one gentleman who is a writer for the Hollywood industry. He has a home up there. And he happened to be awake at 4:30 in the morning. And he happened to hear something odd outside. And it turns out it was a police car outside making announcements to evacuate because of a coming fire. And so he was able to go in, wake up his wife and kids. And he also realized he had 3 elderly neighbors in their 70s, late 70s, and early 80s. And he realized there was no way that they heard those announcements. And so he was able to go rouse them and get them to evacuate. And even that evacuation was harrowing because their traditional evacuation, their route out of their community had been cut off due to down power lines. So he had to navigate his family and these elderly people up through a completely closed community towards the fire at one point in order to access a gate. And his concern was, his belief was, had he not taken those actions, that those elderly folks would have perished. And so I would respectfully request this community absolutely go back 40 years to the relationships that we used to have with our neighbors, and make those contacts and build those relationships and look out for one another. One other thing that I thought I would include in tonight's comments, and again, trying to keep this brief, was so I had several close friends lose their family homes, and homes that I'd been in multiple times over 30 years. One of them did a remarkable job in assessing the situation. He didn't wait for the city to make an announcement about evacuations. He evaluated the situation himself, and they ultimately took 3 steps. And that was, he went in, he said, kids, wife, we've got to get out of here. And so you have 15 minutes to identify the things you must have with you. They came back 15 minutes later. He assessed the situation outside. Fire wasn't that close. He went and said, okay, now take 15 minutes and get the comfort items, things he would like for a couple of days extended. 15 minutes later, they came back. Third one, he said, okay, we've got a little bit more time. Go find the irreplaceable items that if we lost our home, you would wish you'd had. And then 15 or so minutes later, loaded up the car, and they left. And they were able to get out, and everything worked out just fine. And I say this because there were so many people that came up to the checkpoint because the area had been closed off. There were orders put in place that no one could go to their homes, had to evacuate. There was even a curfew installed between 1800 hours and 0600. But there were so many people coming up and saying, I don't have my medication. I've been away from my medication for 5 days. I don't have documents. I don't have my deeds, things like that. And I would respectfully request that our community evaluate what are those documents that you need. that if you had 5 minutes to get out of your house, and in some cases that's all they had, that they have